Go for it.
Hello and welcome to episode number 7 of Remembering Our Generations. We got the rock and roll historian, my wonderful co-host Vince Lupo here. Now, Vince, today we decided we're going to do an episode on American Bandstand for a lot of reasons, and we got a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, when most people think of American Bandstand, they immediately first thing they go to is they think of Dick Clark, but amazingly, we learned that there it was a host that predated even Dick Clark. So let's get into it.
Sure. So from what we know, and some of it through Wikipedia.
Sure,
Now, I
yeah.
was there for a lot of it, in real life, but the first version of it was hosted by not Bob Horn, somebody else, and then Horn came in
Oh,
just after that, 52, in 52. Now, you enlightened me, plus I also read on
yeah,
Wikipedia what happened. Now, Dick Clark came in September of 57
that's
and
correct.
lasted virtually until it almost ended. And then there was another host for the last few years. The bulk of it, of course, was Dick Clark. So let's run through it. So this Horn, what happened to Horn? You tell
Okay,
me, because
okay.
I
Well,
know
Bob
you.
Horn, first of all, what's interesting is they even try to kind of erase and like the history. They want people to forget about the original host, Bob Horn. And what happened was initially he was arrested twice for drunk driving, but also when he finally got let go from the show was because he was involved with a sex scandal in the sense that he got caught with a 13-year-old girl. She said she had sex. There's actually a couple others that came forward. Amazingly, he beat the rap and he never actually went down for any of those charges, but the show didn't think it looked good, obviously, and so they got rid of him. And so much to the point that it was originally called Bandstand. So the
Right.
people at the network at ABC and the producers, they tried to erase kind of what came before. They want people to only concentrate on Dick Clark, and from that point forward, because Dick Clark had a much more cleaner image. He looked like the ultimate teenager, very young at the time. And so even like when they come up on anniversaries, they you don't see any old clips of Bob Horn when he was hosting Bandstand. You only see those classic clips with Dick Clark, and that's because in large part the network and the people behind the scenes are trying to make people forget anybody came before Dick Clark.
Right. And just
Yeah.
so anybody thinks where this show originated from, it wasn't in the two main places, not New York, not LA, Philadelphia. And it was, from what I remember, aired in the afternoon after school, which I thought was so cool. It was a daily show
Yeah.
in the afternoon. Boy, when I would get home and I would turn it on, and we would go through the dances and the hits and the Raider record and all that stuff, which we'll get to. It turns out before all of that, I had two cousins living right nearby, and they watched this show and they turned me onto it. So watching them enjoy it was like, oh, okay. So my family was a musical family, and nobody stopped me from watching American Bandstand. No, so I loved it. They had some guests in. The kids would do the local dances, the newer dances, whatever it was in the 60s. It became the Watusi and the twist and all that stuff. Then the stroll where they go down that line, and another series later on, it started in 70 called Soul Train,
Very good. Yeah.
took
Yeah.
over. They did those dance lines, and that became a very big part of that show. Back to Bandstand. So watching this stuff and growing it up, some of the things that really intrigued me was that they would do a countdown.
Mm.
They counted down the top records. Okay, so they went number five, four, three, two, and the number one record, and they had these things slide out, and they would put the name of the record, and then they would play the record on air, and the kids would dance in the studio. So I found that, what's number one? What's number one? And the other thing, of course, was Raider record. Now, kids, we had something called 45s. They were like yay big. Had this big punch hole in the center. And you could do an automatic drop on, you could stack them like 10 high, and each one would play. incredible. Very bad for the health of a 45 record. But those 45s were the top 40, they call it, top 40 records
Mhm.
was the basis of the show. So they would always play something from the top 40 or something that was emerging, something that was coming up the top 40 that was a hot record. And that became the basis of the show, filming teenagers daily coming into the studio. And I just had great fond memories of the early part of my musical life before I became any kind of player, you know.
Yeah, now let me
Okay.
ask you, Vince. Kind of interesting. Like you said, this is really a first of its kind as far as this type of show. This is, whereas you said that famous countdown got started. I mean, how many people, like, every year we watch New Year's Eve, and they have a ball drop at midnight, and all that, and the countdown to midnight. And that was another thing that was associated with Dick Clark for several years, the New York the New Year's countdown. And
Oh, New Year's
it all
Rockin'
goes back
Eve,
to,
right?
yeah, it all goes back to Bandstand. And what's interesting is you shared with me this morning, when we were going back and forth online, that when the original Bandstand was on with Bob Horn, you were about 1 year old, so very young.
I
But by the
was one
time
years old, right?
by the time that's why we do this. You truly are a rock and roll historian. But by the time it comes around and Dick Clark takes over the show, you're much older. So I was curious. At that point, when you tune into the show every week, was it on week daily, or was it on every week?
It was on weekdays after school. If
Okay.
I remember, it was on like 3:30,
Oh,
and
okay.
then they bumped it to 3 p.m. for some reason. But then it became national. It became national in, I think, 63,
Yeah.
because they moved to LA in a bigger studio, and then it became American Bandstand, not just Bandstand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when the theme was written, the swing theme.
Mhm.
And by the way, there were lyrics that were written many years later, and sung by Barry Manilow. So
Yeah.
if you know that theme, that was much, much later.
Okay.
Somewhere in between, they replaced that song with something else. But then when they went into the early 70s, they switched back to the bandstand theme, and then years later was the lyrics, the singing. Uh,
Yeah.
Just
And,
very
and,
cool.
and yeah, and another thing about American Bandstand, I was reading that at one point they put it on between the news, like be interrupted, they have the news, and then they come back for Bandstand. Um, but my question was going to be, Vince. So when you would tune into this practically every day, I bet, would you find yourself like dancing at home? Were you and when you're listening to the music, I was curious. Did you focus on the drum part, or just you loved it all?
Oh, no, 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 no. For me, it was just a total experience because I was getting more and more and more into music, especially since the Beatles. But even before that,
Uh,
Elvis and the doo-wop stuff, not so much with the doo-wop, but more the rockers, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, that sort of thing. So my mom always having music on in the
uh,
house. So this was just an extension, a visual extension
See, that's the biggest
of
difference. Before you're listening to these
listening to
guys on
music
the
was watching
radio.
music.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, so I just sat there like glued to
yeah,
to the TV, and about as close as I am to the computer right now.
yeah.
Um, just absolutely, what a wonderful time! What a
Now, let me
wonderful
ask
time!
you,
So
Vince,
much fun.
because like you said at that time, I don't know if they had a lot of entertainment magazines or anything, but so a lot of these guys, you've heard their stuff being played on the radio, and that's what made Bandstand so cool was you're seeing your favorite musicians play live on live TV. So probably you're getting to see what a lot of these guys look like for the very first time, right?
Correct. And so that was another part of the show that we failed to mention. They had guest performers coming in. And when the guest performers came in, they they would do their newest hit record.
Yeah,
I even remember later on John Mellencamp
yeah.
doing some stuff. That was much later on.
Later, yeah,
But we had guys like Freddie Cannon the early matinee idols that were on that we all knew, Frankie Avalon, those guys would come in and do their thing, and then music switched. It started to become more of rock, so they started to bring in more of the live those acts, but everybody lip synced.
Mhm.
Nobody played live. Everybody lip synced.
Wow.
It
But
was the beginning of that. It was really
it,
cool to
yeah.
just see them performing. Oh, there they are in the flesh, as a
But it,
kid.
but again, as you're watching this, because again, the big controversy about bands lip syncing when they're performing on TV and stuff, that became like a huge thing, like in the '80s and stuff, and when people started realizing what was really going on. But in the 1950s, when you're watching it, Vince, you're seeing a lot of these people perform on TV for the very first time. You don't even have that going on in your head. Oh, they're lip syncing. You're believing what you're seeing.
Oh no, well, yeah, of course, because we
Yeah,
were naive back
yeah,
in that day. We didn't really know when somebody messed up. That's when you knew.
yeah, yeah,
But for the
yeah.
most part, they were very well rehearsed doing the lip sync thing. That it can go on for 5 days a week
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
evening.
yeah.
Then jumping a little bit ahead, when they went to Saturdays, I believe it was like on at noon.
Okay.
And then it became in color after that. So it just became, and then after that, Soul Train happened.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things I wanted to talk about is this Raider record thing. Now, you kids, you have no idea what Raider record is, unless you do, unless
Okay.
you've heard this before. So they would have two records. So they would play a little bit of one, a little bit of another. Sometimes they would vote on them. And then another time they would put these records out and play them. Well, and then have a couple of kids come on with the long, remember the long microphone, right? With the
Sure, sure.
little
Yeah, yeah,
ball.
yeah,
And he go, okay, what do you think? And well, it's got a good beat. That was a big thing. It's got a good beat and you could dance to it. So a lot of the kids would answer with that. Nobody really answered with great grandiose thoughts of, well, the bass is like this or the
yeah,
guitar
yeah,
goes like that. It's just that it had a good beat and we really like it. And then they would rate it numerically. It wasn't ABC. It was, I'll give it an 85 because it
sure,
was good
sure.
and you could dance to it. That was, I remember the 85 and all of that. So,
Yeah,
and that was a big part of the show was the Raider record. It was like, what do kids think? That's what I liked about it. They let the kids think and talk. That
yeah,
was,
yeah,
that was an
yeah. And I think one
important part of it.
requirement to get your song played on a bandstand had to be if you could dance to it, because that was the whole point behind the show is the kids dancing on the, in the studio. And you bring up a lot of good points, Vince, because and this is why you're really the rock and roll historian, as I call you, because you're on, you're catching this really back in the 1950s when it's just starting out. TV is a very new thing. So when you start to watch American Bandstand, it's black and white, and then it becomes a big deal to the point. Like I remember seeing old reruns of even old classic TV shows like Bewitched, where you'd see stuff like it. You're watching the reruns, and it said in living color. I mean, that became a
Yeah.
huge thing. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah,
can imagine what that must have
65.
been like from watching black and white to seeing color TV from a very. Talk a little bit about that.
It was a living Wizard of Oz moment, going from the black and white, the house crushing down, and all of a sudden you're there and it's all in color and it was all new. Now, my dad, fortunately, was working at one of the best known defense places in the United States at the time, Grumman International. And he was a high up designer,
Okay.
engineer. And so in our neighborhood, we were the people who were fortunate to have things first.
Yeah.
We had first color TV on the block, so
Hmm.
everybody would want to come in and check it out. It was that was the coolest thing was just seeing color, color. The game shows on in the morning in color. The evening shows, I remember Bewitched from black and white to
Yeah.
color. It
Yeah.
was just an amazing amazing time. For you guys that grew up with a phone in your hand,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
knowing how to program, you
yeah,
have no clue of the jump in technology from black and white to color, really it was for us.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I wanted to bring up one thing about Dick Clark.
Sure.
America's teenager, right? He was
Yeah, yeah,
America's teenager. And then later on, as he kept on going through the years, he didn't seem to change that much. He just stayed Dick Clark. And pardon.
easy.
And we always thought he was so cool to just be a part of us, you know. And then they did this New Year's Rockin' Eve, and this is the point I wanted to make. New Year's Rockin' Eve, they had the bands,
Yeah,
all these big stages, right? A stage here, a stage there. But I happened to go to a New Year's Eve once. This was back in 80s, earlier 80s,
okay.
when that was not a thing yet. There were no stages, there were just loads of people. So, pardon me, I'm a little
Yeah,
sore throat, a little sore. So, when you see it now, it's reimagined from what never was.
yeah, yeah,
That was never, it was black and white
yeah,
with no stages, no music. It was just Guy Lombardo pumped through at midnight,
yeah, yeah,
we should all acquaintance. And so Dick Clark changed New Year's Eve.
yeah, yeah.
He changed New Year's.
And
Amazing.
talking
Just
about,
all.
yeah, talking about the ultimate teenager, he really looked, really that young, and he stayed looking healthy right up until the end. He looked, a little fragile, a little frail when he started getting sick with the cancer, but up until the very end, I mean, he remained that. And I got to say about Dick Clark, he also went on to form his own TV production company. He did game shows like $100,000 Pyramid, but he was a guy too, but never had a lot of controversies. He's, anytime you'd see him, he's a real cool cat, just down to earth. You didn't hear him get in any kind of trouble. One of those rare few.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have such great fond memories of Bandstand because it was the window to my world
Sure.
of wanting to be in music. And it was disappointing that the Beatles never appeared on that
Yeah.
show. They never did. I think they did one of the nighttime shows that got spawned from this. The dance shows were Hullabaloo and those sorts of things in the evening in prime time. And that changed all of us in the 60s as well, but it also really started with
Yeah,
American Bandstand.
and I'm sure you know this, Vince, but Guy Lombardo was a little before my time, but I learned about him doing a previous show on Bandstand, and he actually came. Obviously, he was the New Year's guy that came before Dick Clark, and once Dick Clark kind of took over once his kind of popularity ran, its course.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If anybody ever gets a chance to see anything in a rerun, not a rerun, online,
Yeah,
go ahead and check it out because it's real piece of Americana that has gone by. We don't have those shows anymore that I
yeah,
know of. We have internet. Everybody wants what they want when they want it now.
and
It
that's
was
why I enjoy.
MTV
Yeah,
became
yeah,
the next thing.
that's why I enjoy doing shows like this, Vince, because you'd be amazed. Like people are experienced like maybe somebody will watch this and they'll go and check out a episode of American Bandstand on YouTube. That's how a lot of kids experience
Right.
stuff like that. But it's still like that's something you could do, and you'd be amazed at how many episodes of that you'll be able to find. Now, let's talk before we wrap it up, Vince. Let's talk about some of the people that like premiered on TV for the first time on Bandstand. I think you'll be amazed at this list: Elvis, Buddy Holly,
Uh-huh.
the Beach Boys, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Madonna, Prince, the Jackson Five. That's just kind of a short list, but you can see even right there the variety of types of performers they had on the show.
He tried to get them all in when they were hot. When they had a hot record, that was when they got them in. Plus, remember it was national.
Yeah.
It wasn't local anymore. It was national. Now, with the Philadelphia feed, we got the feedback in New York.
Mm,
So we had that show on before it went national. I do really
yeah.
remember that. When it went national, everybody saw it. That's why it became American
Yeah.
Bandstand. But what you're talking about, what a change.
Mhm.
Everything it changes. Nothing should stay static. It should always change and grow. And that one little black and white TV show from Philadelphia changed the course of music history, plus video music history. It
I
changed
mean,
everything.
they had different, once Dick Clark left the show to do other things, they continued with American Bandstand. And of course, it wasn't as popular as when Dick Clark did it, but it still had a huge run. I think it ended like in the early 90s or like late 80s. So it had a long run, because just of the history of the show.
Well, who's America's new teenager? The guy who became this de facto
Ryan
uh,
Seacrest, is that the guy?
Ryan Seacrest, absolutely. He took over. He got his blessings from Dick Clark
In
to
fact,
to to
New Year's
carry
Rockin' Eve,
on.
he carries it
New
on every
Year's
year. But
Rock.
what I love about that is there's he's such a high class guy that he agreed to continue to call it Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve.
And he's all over the place, of course, with a million shows. His fingers are in a million pies, just like Dick
And
Clark's was.
I mean, of course, the original show that a lot of people came to know Ryan Seacrest from was American Idol. It's a lot different than American Bandstand, but I can't help but think American Bandstand might not have had a little bit of an influence on that show.
No, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
There's no question. To see all the stars come in here and there and playing their hits, the Raider record, the dancing. Oh, I wanted to go on that show and dance.
Yeah.
Then they moved to LA. My dream went up in smoke.
Yeah. And yeah, another thing that record companies used to do back in the day, Vince, when these people would appear on, especially for the first time, you'd see ads where they'd say, "Oh, okay, Elvis Presley appeared on American Bandstand, first TV performance or whatever the case may be." But Elvis was very young at the time. He hadn't played much on TV. Now, what I was reading is why ABC chose 1957 to relaunch Bandstand was because rock and roll was already popular. Elvis had just broke. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino were all charting, and teenagers were buying records. So this was a perfect time for a show like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wasn't there for Elvis' first
Oh, but yeah,
appearance,
yeah, yeah,
of course. But later on, when the show went national in '63, that's why many of these of the artists wanted to
yeah.
come on the show so they could get national exposure. What did it do? Sell more records,
Mm-hmm.
sell more
It
records,
became a
and
selling
get
point.
them
We appeared
bigger
on
name.
American Bandstand. We appeared on it. They would that's a credit they would mention, because it was a big thing. Even like having Madonna in the '80s appearing on there for the very first time, before anybody really knows who she is. That's a big thing to say that you broke Madonna on your show.
Oh, I remember many of those people coming on for the first time. And what a treat. Just for music fans, it was a treat. For musicians, I think it was a little bit of a better treat. Some of us thought we were too cool to watch
Sure, sure.
American Bandstand,
Yeah, yeah,
you know? That was a little later on in
yeah.
time as you age, as it was really focused more on the teens.
Yeah. Now,
So
did you catch yourself like in the late '80s still watching it even when Dick Clark was no longer hosting it, or did you kind of
sure.
okay?
Sure, absolutely. That and Soul Train. Are you kidding me? Clear the field.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then I switched more from Bandstand, but I would watch Bandstand just to see what was going on, to Soul Train, which had at that point more energy, had more. It was more colorful.
Of
The,
course.
the
Yeah,
people who they into the studio who were regulars, you knew who they were. Oh, there they go. They're going down, dancing down that aisle. Um, it had a whole different vibe to it,
yeah.
obviously, and they brought in some great performers. My favorite, Tower of Power, playing
Oh, wow,
live. Oh,
wow. Yeah,
Oh,
I think down the
goodness.
line we're gonna have to do an episode on Soul Train just to kind of compare the two, being so different.
Yeah.
But Vince, let me ask you this because another thing about Bandstand in the 1970s, if you caught any of those episodes, besides having like musical guests and these great musical performances, like they would have people from popular TV shows that started to pop up. Especially the ABC stars. Like there's an episode or two with the kids from Welcome Back, Kotter. I remember John Travolta going on there and doing an interview with Dick Clark.
Oh,
They would, and so that's another thing the show started to do, expose some of the ABC talent. They would pop up. John Travolta would be dancing.
right.
Yeah,
Right. That was, of course, to promote shows from ABC,
yeah,
but it was also because of the fact that they were in Hollywood.
yeah, yeah,
Well, they can't do it in Philadelphia, not on a whim. So they can get these, hey, get so and so in, see if they want to be on. Because where did they live? They lived in some neighborhood right nearby. They
yeah,
worked at ABC a lot for as long as the shows are on TV. So yeah, great stuff, kid.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And were you a dancing fool like every time American Bandstand would come on? You find yourself dancing in your house, thinking you had, the move.
No, no,
Yeah.
I was a dancer, but I wasn't a dancing fool.
Okay. Yeah. Because a lot of people were. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 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 not, please,
Yeah.
Lord in heaven, no, don't let that ever go down. No.
That's just the comedy. That's the comedy factor of the episode
Yeah,
here.
really.
Uh, yeah,
Well, thank you, folks. Thank you.
yeah, well, this was a real great episode. I'm gonna be posting this in just probably a little over an hour, so it'll go up. I'll send you the link once it's up, and people can check it out. And I always have fun doing these episodes with the events. I look forward to it every month, and we already talked about what we're gonna do next. So for episode 8, I thought it'd be real fun to do an episode on Roy Orbison because there's so much to talk about. He had many ups and downs in his life and his career. Died kind of tragically young, but you know what? He's one of those guys, got a lot of great songs, and I want to do a show on him too because I think he's passed away a number of years ago, and I think people are starting to forget about who he was.
I love Roy.
Yeah,
What a sweet soul and what a great voice. And what became
yeah,
uh, you could be blind and it doesn't really matter,
yeah,
and was that legally blind and just a beautiful, beautiful soul and I just love that what he left behind. It's
yeah.
really
Very,
good
and
stuff.
it was much more to him than just oh, Pretty Woman.
Yeah, absolutely. More than
Yeah.
that. Absolutely.
Well, take care, my
Okay.
friend. Great talking to you, and we'll see you again real soon, Vince. Okay, take care.
See you soon, Pally.
Hey, bye
Bye
bye.
bye.